Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Sports Exchange, a Monday night version. My name is Scott Morgan, the Motor City Madmouth. Along with my Monday co-host, George Eichorn.
Hello, sir.
Hello. And I want to welcome AJ Ricketts to the broadcast, FIU play-by-play announcer for the Golden Panthers. And AJ, welcome to the broadcast. Glad to have you.
Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're very welcome. So why don't you give everybody an overview about AJ's road to the play-by-play booth?
Sure. It was a great opportunity to get back to Miami and South Florida. I spent a couple of years in North Carolina at the NBC and Fox affiliate, anchoring sports up there after graduating from U Miami. Certainly have a great passion for being in the booth and play-by-play and being around a team and a program. And it's been a great privilege to be around Butch Davis and this FIU program the last couple of seasons because there's obviously been a lot of special things happening. The program keeps developing, and there's just high-quality people, high-character people all around the team and the organization. So lucky to be a small part of it.
So tell me, was broadcasting in your MO growing up as a kid or not?
To be honest, no. For the longest time, I wanted to be the point guard for the Duke basketball team, and everyone that played for Duke majored in sociology. So when people asked what I wanted to do, I just told them I wanted to major in sociology and go to Duke. I didn't really grasp what sociology even was. But at some point in high school, I found I had a passion for broadcasting, was kind of on a whim, decided to broadcast a boys volleyball game for fun as part of student council. We wore suits and were very obnoxious and went over the top, but I said this was a lot of fun and I should look into doing this seriously. And it just took off from there. So no, I wasn't the kid standing by his radio, listening to the greats broadcast. That wasn't me by any means, but I'm glad I found the industry, the profession when I did, was able to get into it.
Now, when you were in high school, you talked about being an athlete. Why don't you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I got into running cross country and track my freshman year of high school. Once I realized that football was not going to be my path towards being a collegiate athlete as a 5'5", 120-pound kid. Got more into it, got more serious with running, got the chance to run cross country and track at the University of Miami. Really fun 4 years doing that, to be part of that program. And running's still a big part of my life on a day-to-day basis.
And I know you have a passion for coaching as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, I coach on the side. There's a local prep school in town that I'm fortunate to be able to coach cross country and track on the side. So, I'm really lucky to be able to broadcast at a great program like FIU, to coach cross country and track and be around athletes that have a lot of dreams, a lot of goals themselves. So it's so good to be back in South Florida doing both of those things. I don't take it for granted.
Now, I got to tell you an interesting story, AJ. I went to Broward Community College. I went to the South Campus and then the Central Campus. I actually took 2 courses at FIU, but the North Miami one.
Okay, the Biscayne Bay campus?
Yeah, is that what it is, Biscayne Bay? I'll take your word for it. They were just, I don't know if there's any dorms there or not now, but it was a growing campus. But then I decided eventually to leave South Florida. I mean, I would have considered FAU, but I got a job offer to go to Tampa to work for the Tampa Tribune, and I became a University of South Florida Bull. So, and I'll tell you what, when you have an opportunity to work with the Tampa Tribune like I did and learn from the editors and the sports editor, Tom McEwen, as you well know, that opportunity was too good for me to pass up. But I have 6 credit hours as a Golden Panther long before you were born.
Well, you're a Panther then.
In direct sense. Yeah. I don't know. In fact, you know what? I'll give you a little bit of a trivia question. You know who was in one of my public speaking classes? Or Joe Zagacki.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, Joe Zagacki. I don't know if he was in my public speaking class or the instructor was working with him. I can't remember. It's been too long back. But Joe Zagacki at the time was being tutored by my instructor. That's what I think it was. And obviously we know that he's done some incredible work for the University of Miami for sure. But yeah.
How about that? Joe's a good friend. Joe's a legend. That's you guys go way back then. That's pretty cool.
Well, I'll have to get in contact with him. Maybe if you could help me get a hold of Joe, I'd love to have him on here, have a little bit of reunion. But yeah, he actually had an instructor that was actually helping him out. And my instructor, my public speaking, I don't remember the lady's name. It's too far back. But so, yeah, I guess you could say I have a little bit of Golden Panther there. I have the utmost respect for what they do at the athletic department. And one of the guys I really enjoy working with is Tyson Rogers, one of the classiest people I've ever met in PR. He's been very cooperative, supplying us content for the South Florida Tribune. And that's why if there's an opportunity to bring a Golden Panther on, we're always willing to do it. FAU, anybody where I feel there's a legitimate contact connection are always welcome on this network for sure. So with that said, now that I've given you the soft intro, now it's time to get down to that thing called the nitty-gritty.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
All right, talk about Butch Davis. What does he mean to the program, AJ?
Well, anytime you hire someone with Butch's background, his pedigree, his quality, you're going to get eyeballs to what you're doing. Obviously, potentially, I say arguably put together the greatest, the most talented roster in college football history. That 2000-2001 Canes team was loaded with first-round pick, NFL draft picks across the board. He has the Super Bowl rings well displayed on either on his finger in his office with what he did at the Dallas Cowboys as defensive coordinator. The last coach, take the Cleveland Browns to the playoffs. He got the ball rolling at Carolina when there wasn't a lot of momentum there at all. And now, obviously, what he's done at FIU, 3 straight bowl games. Nobody's ever done that in FIU's history. So you bring that pedigree, you're automatically going to get more attention. You start winning, and that's going to continue. So he's certainly changed the culture. I wasn't around before he got there. We arrived at FIU at the same time, but to see the amount of the attention to detail he has, the quality of recruits he's bringing in, his relationships with the athletes, not just when they come in as underclassmen, but even after they leave. That's pretty cool, and that's what it's all about. So it's great to have him, not just as our football coach, but as a representative of the program and Florida International.
How big was that win over the Miami Hurricanes at Marlins Park last year? I know that, any win against your city rival, and we all know that rivalry, there was that big fight that broke out where a lot of people were suspended. But so it's not like both universities completely like each other, but for the FIU Golden Panthers to get a monumental win against a Miami Hurricanes, a Power 5 school, that had to do wonders for that program.
That mattered. That was huge. And Butch will tell you, we were able to secure some recruits there. Maybe it was 50-50. Maybe they were leaning one way or the other. And, that was significant to them, seeing that FIU could compete, not just in conference play, but against Power 5 teams and the dominant program in the city for the entire time college football has been here. So obviously it was great for Butch to win at this side of the old Orange Bowl, but it was huge for the program, for the city. There's obviously been a struggle to feel that validation in South Florida, and I think that did so much for the players who certainly deserved it. The community has been there since the program started in the early 2000s, and it was just a terrific night there at Marlins Park. Very well deserved for everyone around, and I was really happy for everyone there.
As a broadcaster, what was it like for you early in your broadcasting career to have a defining moment, pretty much, in South Florida? I mean, every broadcaster, AJ, looks for a defining moment. I realize that you're young and you have a lot of great days ahead of you, but this had to be a pretty good early moment for you to broadcast quite a very important game.
Yeah, all you can ask for as a broadcaster is a great game, but when you have, certainly had a lot of personal storylines for myself. Felt like the other day I was gearing up to race as a Miami Hurricane, and then I was broadcasting against them. But I was certainly very invested and on board with what we're trying to do, our goals as a program, and it was certainly a very memorable night. I know a couple of feet to my right was the FIU coach's booth, and with every touchdown, with every interception, the electricity kept growing there. We were, by the end of the game, high-fiving each other on the glass through the booth. My color commentator was Kenny Kelly, who was, quarterback for for Butch in 1999. He's had a very distinguished career of his own, 11-year Major League Baseball veteran, a a coach to so many throughout, high school and in college, has impacted a lot of people, and to be able to share the booth with him, a guy that loves Butch Davis as well, and to share that moment, that's pretty awesome. It was a great moment, and it's certainly one that's you jot down, you certainly think about a little more than others.
Were you surprised that there was no reunion with Miami as far as Butch Davis was concerned? Because at that time, Butch knows the area well. He built a nucleus for Larry Coker to win those titles. So in my opinion, he really should have gotten a championship ring for what he did with the Miami Hurricanes since he laid out the groundwork. So I was kind of wondering whether or not the Hurricanes would even have a reunion with Butch, although I know they were looking at Mark Richt as well.
Yeah, it's hard to say whether, obviously Blake had to make his decisions. Mark Richt was very attractive to them. It's been well chronicled that Butch had an interview. These things can be fickle sometimes. Some athletic director has a vision for what they want, targets they may have had for some time. Mark obviously was an alum of the program too. So, I think long-term everyone would say it worked out for the best. Butch is really happy to be at FIU. His son is on staff as well, Drew Davis, coaching the tight ends. That's something pretty special to have. They drove out of Marlins Park together after that win, just like old times, after Pop Warner football, but it was after the biggest win in school history. To have those moments, I don't think Butch is ever questioning, how things worked out in 2015 or whatnot. Certainly had every right to be considered, and Mark Richt had every right to have the job. So that's, sports, that's how coaching hires go. You can be ultra qualified and not get the job. You can be underqualified and get the job, but I think everything's worked out the way it should.
All right, George Eichorn is getting a little bit of an education, absorbing a little bit of South Florida football here. George, what do you want to add for AJ Ricketts?
Well, I see where you guys have gone to 3 different bowl games the last 3 years, the Gasparilla Bowl, the Bahamas Bowl, and the Camellia Bowl. AJ, talk about that. I mean, I know these are lesser bowls for a team like yours going to, but how much does the bowl season mean to the kids, the coaches, the alumni, to take a team to a bowl game?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I don't think the program views it as lesser bowls. I don't think you can view it in that regard when getting there is an achievement. It's getting to a bowl game was huge. It wasn't the norm for this program. It hadn't been done since Cristobal was here. So to go 3 consecutive times, that's the program first. To be able to do it in St. Pete and play in Tropicana, that was an awesome experience. In year 1, Butch came around, and a lot of those seniors had very little success, and then Butch came in and they got to go out on a high note. And then obviously in 2018, finished the season in the Bahamas, a week in Atlantis, get an amazing come-from-behind bowl win over Toledo. That's a moment the program remembers. Didn't get the win against the talented Arkansas State team last year, and it was weird to finally not be in a tropical setting for a bowl game, but Montgomery treated us really well. And it's just all about getting to that bowl game and competing and putting yourself on a national stage. So it's a lot of fun to see the bowl games accumulate, and I have no doubt that will continue. Obviously, we don't know how bowl games are going to be structured this year, and there's a lot of discussion about, how many wins you're going to need or whatnot. We're not worried about that. We're just focused on Middle Tennessee this weekend. But, 3 straight bowl games, it doesn't matter what bowl games, and maybe the prestige will keep climbing, as the program keeps trying to achieve its goals. But that's certainly an accomplishment that I don't think anyone around is taking for granted.
That's good. That's good to hear. In Detroit, we have the Quick Lane Bowl at
Right.
Ford Field. And obviously before that, it had different names, the Little Caesar Bowl, the Motor City Bowl, the Cherry Bowl, back to the days at the Pontiac Silverdome. And I can relate exactly to what you said, AJ. Those teams coming in there never look at it as a step behind or a lesser bowl. The city of Detroit, for example, the hometown or whatever who's hosting that bowl, they go all out, first class, obviously, to welcome the athletes, the alumni, the students, and faculty and everybody else. So
don't forget, George, one of the biggest moments in FIU history, the Motor City Miracle, 4th down lateral that set up the game-winning field goal for FIU's bowl win at the start of the decade.
That's
one of those
right.
moments for FIU happened in the early 2000s.
Absolutely. Good memory there. And the other thing I wanted to mention, Scott, is that, I think about AJ and I think about when I got my start. I broadcasted small college football at Wayne State University here in Detroit. And much like you, AJ, I mean, I thought about maybe broadcasting a little bit, but I was a sports writer at heart. And then
Yeah.
I went into send an audition tape to Wayne State football, and they hired me, and I had some of the best years of my life. So I applaud you at your age to go for it, and to do the play-by-play. I went to some small towns, up in northern part of Michigan and Ohio and Towson, Maryland. We broadcast over there. And Wayne State has struggled with the program in a big city like Detroit, obviously being in the shadows of U of M and MSU. But I can certainly relate, AJ, to your challenge and your opportunity that you have there. And
I know, I appreciate that, George. It's and that's a good tangent. I talked about that with Bryn Renner, our quarterbacks coach, on one of our podcasts the other week. He was the quarterback at Carolina, ACC player of the year candidate all the time. And, 1 year later, after all that spotlight, he was working at a golf course in Chapel Hill, 12-hour day, while he was trying to still chase his dream. That was the in-between point between Carolina and an NFL preseason spot. So, we related. I had those humble moments in Carolina, maybe covering sports that didn't have a lot of attention, or city council meetings or whatever it may have been. Wasn't my vision of what I was going to be doing immediately after Miami and all the big moments that came with that. But to be able to be doing play-by-play now, go through that process, get better, be able to learn. Very, very thankful for that. So I always think there's a place for that. And you meet a lot of great people along the way doing that, for sure.
You sure do.
AJ, I got to tell you a play-by-play story I had back in 1987.
Okay.
I did play-by-play for WKMT out in Kings Mountain, North Carolina. I was doing it as a side thing, covering American Legion ball. And you know who I was working for in professional baseball? The Gastonia Rangers, the Class A team, or the Texas Rangers. And if you've ever heard of Sammy Sosa, Juan Gonzalez, okay? I was the director of public relations for them.
There you go, Scott. There you go. Yeah, that's awesome.
We lost over 90 games, but only developed like 10 or 12 future major leaguers. Go figure. I don't know. But other than that, I've enjoyed my time doing a lot of sports talk radio now, whether it's internet, regular terrestrial radio, as we go. And George and I go back to our days, WXYZ radio, when we first started this thing for the affiliate.
Yeah.
Onto what we're doing under this platform. So, for someone like you to be taking a dream, and I had the old transistor radio underneath my pillow. I mean, what can I tell you? It's in your blood.
We listened to a guy named Ernie Harwell, didn't we, Scott?
Oh, yeah.
And talk about hiding the transistor radio to listen to the late Tiger baseball games, and you talk about legends, and certainly Ernie Harwell and Paul Carey.
I tried to make up for it in 2016 in Carolina. I bought MLB Extra Innings, MLB TV, and would just pull up Vince Scully at night just to listen to Vince, since I knew his career was winding down. I eventually got to the point where I was listening to broadcasters just to listen to the greatness of them. But that wasn't me. I didn't have the transistor radio. I had the iPhone. So.
Yeah. I sense that little age differential here, but it's okay. I can completely appreciate everything you're saying, AJ. I didn't know anything about social media back then, but boy, how quickly we learned. And if it weren't for social media, folks, I should point out for those of you watching, listening to the broadcast, I met AJ Ricketts on Twitter, so you can meet some phenomenal people on there. And the reason why AJ is on here, thanks again to Twitter. So with that said, let's talk about FIU rivalry, the Shula Bowl. I've seen this FIU rivalry at different stadiums. I watched them play the Orange Bowl, the last game I think ever at the Orange Bowl. I call it Joe Robbie Stadium. I am not going to buy into the sponsors. If the sponsors want to pay me money, I will do it. Forget it. Not going to do it. Seen it at FAU Stadium. I even saw this game over at FIU Stadium. I don't know who your corporate sponsor is. But
Ricardo Silva, he's a big friend of the program. Yeah.
Who's that?
Ricardo Silva Stadium. That's our spot. Ricardo Silva.
It is. Yeah. So I've been able to appreciate this Shula Bowl in 4 or 5 different venues, and it's been unbelievable to be a part of something like that with Don Shula got it going. Don Strock was obviously behind it. And Mario Cristobal, you talked about him, AJ, did a heck of a job at FIU, and now he's doing some pretty good things over at the University of Oregon as well. So why don't you talk about the FAU-FIU rivalry, and then after that, follow it up about how important the Shula Bowl is.
Yeah, it's thing about growing up in the state of Florida. Even though I was up in Pensacola, you realize this. No matter what sport you're in, you're gonna see people in college that you saw in high school. And when you concentrate that down to South Florida football, the intensity, the emotion of that elevates. It's obviously a region where there's so much talent, there's so much history. So when you take a lot of the best high school programs in South Florida, which correspondingly are some of the best in the country, and you split up those best players among Miami, Florida, FSU, FIU, FAU, UCF, US. I mean, there's people are going to cross paths. Every other player on the roster, you're going to have some familiarity with. So that makes it so much fun. And obviously, that's been a storyline with FIU and FAU. Right up the road in Boca Raton. They've had our number the last few years. There's no doubt about that. I think that sting was negated a little bit by the Miami win, but we still need to get that monkey off our back, and I trust we will soon, hopefully. Lane did a great job there. Willie Taggart obviously is trying to set the foundation there too. But it's a lot of fun each and every year. Every time we play them, it certainly means a little bit more. Guys know their buddies there, and so they may hit each other a little harder during the game. They may talk a little extra trash, but they'll probably also dab it up and give each other a hug and respect each other once the game is over. And ultimately, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, Lane Kiffin, the job that he did at FAU, everybody thought that when he took over the job at FAU, that if he couldn't succeed there, that'd be the end of his coaching career. But what did he do? He did an outstanding job for the Owls, without a doubt. So, so now we'll talk about the FIU-Miami rivalry. I know we touched on it a little bit, but again, this one here, to me, has nastiness written all over this one. Again, I alluded to that example when a few years back they had that big fight that broke out and a bunch of players were suspended. I know it's certainly nothing that most people want to remember, but it just goes to show you when you have an intercity rivalry, where you have virtual recruiting and battles, that you could see a feistiness to this whole battle. And of course, you guys made things more interesting once again, as I alluded to earlier in the broadcast, about how FIU came up with a very monumental win against Miami. So why don't you go into more detail about the FIU-Miami rivalry, if I may ask you?
Well, I don't think it's in the same place that it was in 07 or, when those guys played. The guys were very conscious not to let that happen again. That would have been unacceptable, and I don't think that was in anybody's mind. Obviously, it wasn't a very competitive game in 18, and things changed in 19. There's naturally going to be a little bit more. I think anytime Florida schools play, there is that extra element of intensity. But I think FAU is a huge rival for FIU. We play every single year. Miami, it was a home and home. We didn't play at Ricardo Silva because we didn't have the expanded the stadium renovation at that point. But it was a home and home, and that's it until another contract is signed. So I think FIU fans love any opportunity to play Miami in whatever sport it may be. But you talk about a general rivalry, and I think FAU has to fill that mold. But when you get your opportunity against the team you usually don't, you certainly want to take advantage of it. So no one's going to deny it means more to play them. But ultimately for FIU, beating FAU every year will help you in the Conference USA standings. Beating Miami when you get the opportunity will give you a lot of national relevance. So you got to take advantage of those moments when it comes. But I think everyone was aware of what happened in 07, was very conscious that if that's not going to happen anymore, there's too much on the line. There's too much at stake to be getting down to what happened.
AJ,
I don't think that's a thought anymore.
Yeah. I was just going to interject, AJ, what are your thoughts about the whole, the broad picture? This college football season obviously has been one like we've never seen before, with the COVID national pandemic and schools like the Pac-12 and the Big Ten sitting out, the Mid-American Conference, and there several conferences like those are getting late starts this year. what were your thoughts about playing football this year? I mean, what was going through your mind as we went through all this and still continue to go through this?
I think at this point, there's only 3 schools that are not playing anymore. Look, so many players do want to play. I think you saw that with, the push on social media when on that weekend, it looks like college football is going to be canceled. A lot of these players want to play. They love the sport. And the thing about this is they're doing whatever it takes to do it safely. We're testing 3 times a week. Power 5 schools, you have the daily rapid antigen testing with those budgets. You're able to get, more day-to-day basis. But, so many schools, so many programs, all the players, they're trying to do this right. This isn't just doing it on a whim, seeing if it works out. There's a lot of effort that goes into this. Waking up at 5:30 a.m. to go get your 6 a.m. COVID test and then do it again a couple days later and then do it on the weekend. Being smart when you're off the field. I love that the administrators and the coaches and the players are willing to try to make this happen. I think there's a love for football, but you got to be smart about it. We've seen outbreaks happen in different spots. It's not a situation where you want to blame anybody. COVID can be very easy to catch. It's not a situation like that. But look, I see an effort from so many people to try to do this the right way because they realize what college football means to the community. It was brutal to be sitting at home during the spring and the summer, and they have a love and passion for football, and they just want to play the sport, regardless if they have a chance to make the NFL or not. They want to play the sport. And obviously it has a lot of implications, college football, for the rest of college athletics, and the funding and the financials for that. And you can't ignore that as well. But, I just from the perspective of the players. And there's a lot of kids at FIU that just love the game. They want to play. They'll test as often as they need to, and they'll be safe away from the football field. And, a lot of teams have proven they can do that safely through week 4, week 5 of the season now. And no matter where you're going to be, some teams are going to have those outbreaks, maybe contact tracing. You might have 2 kids positive, but the contact tracing takes out your offensive line, so you can't play. And you know what? That's okay. That's fine, because let's be safe. Let's postpone the week and make sure everyone stays safe rather than force it. But let's also give the people the opportunity to play if they test negative and want to be out there. So, I see all angles. I see all perspectives of this. It's not an easy issue. It's not a black or white issue. There is nuance, and nuance is often what causes a little bit of unhealthy dialogue. But there's a lot of teams doing this the right way, and you got to keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, sure. Willie Taggart mentioned on Saturday when I asked him after the FAU win over Charlotte, I had asked him, what's it like going in the day of the game? He kept my fingers crossed, hoping that this thing would get done, and thankfully the game against Charlotte took place. But then I followed up with him today about it, and he said, when a lot of these incidents take place, it seems like you get more and more freshmen that have the opportunity to play as well that ordinarily wouldn't be able to play. So they get more experience. Again, whatever eligibility things, you might as well throw them out the window, because right now you want as many able bodies. So the freshmen have an opportunity to play perhaps a little bit sooner than they normally would under these circumstances.
Good point.
You know what playing freshmen will make coaches want to do. I mean, it's going to make coaches want to drink. Playing freshmen can be very stressful. And, it can be an opportunity for them to get reps that they might not. I think 10 out of 10 times the coaches want to work them into that, not rush them into that playing time. They need to develop. But, it could be an opportunity where, a younger guy gets to prove himself on a stage that they may not have been able to. Maybe a silver lining of all of this. I think the bigger worry is tackling in practices, being ready physically to go into a game. We saw Navy week 1, the dozens of tackles they missed. They didn't practice full contact, full speed tackling going into week 1. And you saw that. And maybe that ends up being even a little dangerous down the road. So there's a lot of worries that go into this, whether it be, the tackling, playing freshmen or whatnot. But that's just something everyone's going to have to adapt to.
Well, Taggart has such a great sense of humor. Again, I know we're going to play the H card a little bit, AJ, so don't worry about it. When I talked about former Michigan quarterback Rick Leach being played as a freshman by Bo Schembechler, he said to me, times have changed. It's not the exception to the rule now. And nowadays they do, things have changed quite a bit. George and AJ, you brought up a good point about the Bahamas Bowl. The Bahamas Bowl isn't the worst consolation prize. If you can cover that game on the Bahamas. Did you have a good time when you were covering the Bahamas Bowl?
Yes, I did. To answer, it's funny. There's a lot of logistics that goes into it, and to make a long story short, there was a lot of staff that was not able to make the trip until the day of the game or the day before the game, because staying at Atlantis, staying in the Bahamas is it's actually an expensive endeavor. The bowl payout for the Bahamas Bowl is not the biggest of all the bowl games. So long story short, I was part of the crew that went there the day of the game instead of spending a week in the Bahamas. However, once that game was over, and I was fine going there the day of, leaving the day of. I was going to go to Mobile to see the bowl game there and reunite with family and the girlfriend, and just my Christmas break started. But there was a mix-up. There was a logistical hiccup with the charter flight. It didn't get to Nassau. We stayed in the airport for hours. We ran out of food in the airport. We were actually quite miserable in the airport waiting for the charter to come, and never did. So we ended up taking a bus back to Atlantis, and that sounds great, but we were all exhausted from the day. But then we rolled up to Atlantis. We got out and we looked around, and then it hit us that we have an extra night. We have a night in Atlantis, in Nassau. Like paid all expense. FIU paid for it. So it ended up being a very, very enjoyable night. FIU took over Atlantis that evening. Boosters, friends of the program, the band, cheerleaders, the sports staff, the broadcaster. So we had a great time in Atlantis, and a 4 a.m. wake up to get to the airport, where we had a little bit more of a delay, but finally got back home. So got to have our Nassau experience. The players obviously were there the whole week, and they had so many fun events throughout the course of the week that culminated in the win. So it's all about the story, and everyone had a great story from Nassau.
Yeah, well, I guess I might have to put the Bahamas Bowl on my bucket list one day. But
as long as you got your passport, get your passport ready to go, and you'll be good. I didn't have my passport ready, so I had to get that expedited. That was a process.
Yeah.
Actually, I had my passport renewed about 2-3 years ago. It's good for another 10 years. It'll probably expire when I go ahead and apply for Medicare.
Yeah, it'll be great timing whenever that happens.
All right, so let's talk about traveling with the team. You say the normal protocol in the mask. What's that like?
Yeah, we're so used to it, guys, at this point, whether it's at practice or traveling now. I mean, we get on the bus to go to the tarmac. We get on the charter flight. It's business as usual. We're all in our mask. Try to social distance once we can. Once we get out of the bus and around the hotel or in team meetings or whatnot. This is something that's going to be a part of the season. The coaches, the staff, we all can wear masks in 90-degree heat during the course of practice. We can do that when we travel as well, when we're on the sidelines. I don't think we care what we have to do, as long as it means we're playing football. And that's the attitude we want to take to it.
Now, what about some of the stadiums that are still not allowing fans in? Do you have an opinion on that, whether fans should be allowed or not? Or I guess some of the governors in certain states like Michigan, we're kind of hand-tied right now because our governor's been very strict, and she has not allowed any fans on the college or the professional level. She has allowed them to come back for the high school football games, but I feel that we're really missing out if we don't at least allow a certain percentage of the stadium to have fans. What do you think?
Here's the thing. I'll never fault a governor or whatnot for being too cautious. I think it's coming out of a place of safety for everyone there. I will say, at the very least, it would be nice to see family members be able to attend the game. At the very least, maybe that's the minimum. Just family members to be able to go there. You have less than 200 or 500 people and can make that work. That's an ideal situation. when it comes down to it, I think, just safety is at the precaution of what everyone is doing. I don't think the governor is allowing 0 people in just despite any programs. Better to be a little safe here. And we've seen situations. I was watching the Georgia game the other day, and it was packed. There were no masks. There was no social distancing. I love to see fans at the stadium. I find myself watching the games on TV that have a lot of fans because it feels normal to me. It feels great to see that atmosphere and hear the band play rather than to watch a stadium that doesn't have anything there. So, look, we get the desire to see fans there. We get the pent up energy that's there. I think with time, these stadiums that have 0 capacity right now, 0% attendance, they'll slowly make their way to fans and to family members and friends. But we've just got to roll with whatever the punches are right now. And it's always disconcerting to see some stadiums with 20,000 people and some with 0, but you're not going to get the consistency you want when a global pandemic is happening. And I think if we can just accept and understand that and be willing to move forward, hopefully in 5 months we're in a completely different spot right now than where we are right now. And in the big picture, that sounds pretty good. If you tell me in 5 months we'll have fans at college baseball games, college basketball games, be able to get things going, I think we can take that big picture. So, I understand both perspectives of it. People want to see their teams play, but we got to work together here during a pandemic.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, on March 11th, 2020, the last game I covered was the Milwaukee Brewers and the Los Angeles Dodgers out in Glendale at Camelback Ranch. And then the COVID thing started to really get ugly once the NBA thing. My first sporting event that I covered was actually Saturday, AJ, with FAU in Charlotte, and I think Katrina McCormick and the rest of the athletic staff did a good job keeping us far apart. What I loved about where I sat is I got to sit in the corner. She knows I like to sit in the corner anyway, so it worked out. But Katrina McCormick knows me really well anyhow. I've known her since 2007, but it is pretty. What are your thoughts about the fact that press boxes are what they are based on the COVID? I know the NFL has much more stringent policies, about cutting their down by about 30% capacity, and colleges have to be very careful as well. But I felt comfortable with the way FAU set it up, and I'm sure that FIU does a pretty good job keeping everybody apart.
Yeah, it's just another fact that you anticipate. You're very well aware of what the protocol is going to be going into it. My color commentator Saturday is going to be Cam Lynch, from former Tampa Bay Buccaneer, former Syracuse University football player. I know he's been taking things precautiously. He's been tested, and we'll probably take our masks off once we put the headset on. But I trust that he's been doing things the right way. I know in the press box, they're definitely spacing out social distance protocols. I think we've had some plastic barriers in between everyone. I had a plastic barrier in between myself and who my color commentator would be when I was on the road at Liberty. I went solo that broadcast, but if I had anybody next to me, we would have had the plastic divider in between us. Look, I think everyone's doing the best they can with the resources they have. Group of 5 schools are going to have different resources than Power 5, but I think, even at the bare minimum, they're doing everything they can. So, just like you're expecting a certain attendance number, you're expecting things to be different in the press box. You just got to roll with the punches.
Yeah, the only time I took my mask off was during the pregame meal, and when I had my popcorn at halftime. Other than that, I was
yeah. That's another difference here. No buffet style meals here. We got the boxed meals for the media meal, but that's a first world problem. I think we can all deal with that.
Yeah, I enjoyed the boxed meals. That means I didn't have to pick out. I took what they gave me, so it didn't hurt the calories at all.
Portion control, Scott. Yes, sir. Portion control. Boxed meal. That's what it is. Portion control.
My first boxed meal experience was really in the Major League Baseball playoffs. I was quite surprised, but I understand why they had to do it at Comerica Park, because there were so many media covering the Tigers in the playoffs, and then the All-Star game was there and the World Series, that we had our box meals, and oh my gosh, it was like a pigsty. I got to tell you guys afterwards, though, because guys would go through there, they'd pick out the sandwich. They didn't like the sandwich, they would throw it back. They'd go for just the apple, or they would just leave the apple there. And you had all these box lunches strewn all over the place at Comerica Park. It was just like a free-for-all. They really did look like pigs. I got to be honest with you. the way they treated those box lunches for Major League Baseball.
Well, I'm okay. I'm okay with my box lunch, and everything wasn't quite as like what you're describing, thankfully. All right. So with that said, AJ, what are your thoughts about remote broadcasting? I know that we've begun to see it. First time I saw it was with NASCAR, and then as a lot of the sports were cranking up, you had the NBA, the NHL, MLB. I mean, this is just unbelievable, let alone the fact that you have Zoom calls as well for access.
Yeah, we're spoiled. There's no doubt about it as broadcasters, and the way things are as a norm, as the standard. Going to a shoot around, talking to the coaches, prepping at the hotel, going to the games, soaking up the atmosphere, feeding off the crowd, decompressing at the hotel after, and then heading on the flight the next day. It's the routine that has become so normal and so kind to us throughout the years. At the same time, number one, I think majority of broadcasters will just take putting the headset on in any capacity at this point. It doesn't matter where they are, whether it's a studio, live in action, or in their living room, which we've seen a lot. So, it's actually very convenient to be in the living room. I'm sure the family members of those broadcasters enjoy that a little bit more. But I will say, hopefully once COVID is done and through, it would be nice to see the shift. Standard back towards in-person broadcasting come back. There's nothing like being at a game, just walking around the arena before and really being a part of that. To me, it's, the closest thing to towing the start line of a cross-country race. It's, those 10 seconds when you're at the stadium right before you go live on air. And then you got to execute for a couple hours. There's nothing like it. But at the same time, things have certainly changed. I know the industry, even before COVID, was starting to see more remote broadcasts. I think it's too early to tell whether that's going to be normal or not. There's some broadcasts you see a difference. You can tell when the broadcasters aren't there, and there's some that are starting to do it pretty effectively. So I think 99% of broadcasters would rather be at the game, but financial considerations are taken into account, travel as well. Obviously, health is the priority right now, and so you can't blame anyone for trying to take that into consideration. But we'll see where it goes. I would always rather be at a game and be on that adventure of travel and being in the city of where a game is. But we'll see what happens. We're ready to adapt to whatever it may be.
Yeah, well, I've been on the road a lot, and I wrote a story for the Tribune back in my element, and I told Katrina I was going to write it and how much I enjoyed being there. But you're right. I mean, obviously, you hit it on the nail on the head with financial considerations being part of it. And might just COVID-19, we're finding that Zoom calls and things like this are a lot more of the future norm than what they were before, when COVID-19 forced us to adjust everything that we're doing, for sure. So let's talk about your visions of climbing the ladder. I kind of believe that you're probably have some visions. I know you're currently working for Florida International University, and you've established yourself as a broadcaster there, but I would assume that every young broadcaster has visions of climbing the ladder. I actually met a really good one out in LA, Joe Davis, because I belong to the Southern California Sports Broadcasters, and Joe and I took a photo. We hung out and talked a little bit, and Joe reminded me a lot like you. To me, a young guy with a tremendous future ahead of you. And, when I see more and more young guys like you, it's really refreshing that this industry is going to be able to have some incredible voices. And I'm just so happy to interact with guys like you right now that are on the rise, because God only knows if I'll ever have access to you when you finally hit the big time. But I'll always have this recording. Although hopefully with you I will.
I think Joe Davis just overheard that comparison and is drafting an email to you to complain about that comparison.
Well, then if he is, and what'll end up happening when I go to the 2022 Southern California Sports Broadcasters, then I'll make it up to him some way or another. And knowing Joe like I do, I don't think it'll be a problem. We'll see.
That's funny. No, I appreciate that. It's look, I think of it like this. Josh Appel was the FIU broadcaster before me. I don't think he was thinking about being at Sports USA when he was at FIU. Adam Amin just took the job at Fox Sports, so well deserved. All these years he was at ESPN. I don't think he was, thinking with every broadcast, how can this help me get to Fox Sports? And I still remember, picking his brain at a Miami UF baseball game in 2014 or 2015. seeing where he is now is pretty awesome. A lot of people, a lot of broadcasters, whoever, whatever profession you may be, you've got your goals, you got your vision, you've had your dreams since you were a kid. But the best way to get there is investing in yourself, immersing yourself in wherever you are at that point. And if you do that, good things tend to happen. So each and every week I'm just focused on being the best broadcaster I can for FIU. If cool opportunities come from that down the road, just like it came from working hard in North Carolina, and FIU opened up. The pieces fall where they may when it comes to that, if you're doing what you're supposed to.
So have you done football? Have you done other sports as well?
I've done other sports, and I mainly focus on football, basketball, baseball at FIU. At this point, I've done volleyball, track, and baseball for ACC Network Extra. So certainly get a good range of sports, and it's fun to switch it up. It's fun to do color commentary for ACC Network Extra when it comes to ACC track and field. Kind of get to shift gears back to the running aspect. So I try to stay well versed with different sports and keep an eye on what's happening throughout the area.
And what kind of suggestions do you give to our young listeners out there, AJ, if they really want to get into sports broadcasting or sports writing as a profession?
That's a good question. Find a way to get reps. Just find anywhere. I started. I mentioned the boys volleyball. Boys volleyball wasn't a sport at my high school. It was a one-off event sponsored by our student council for fun, for some fundraiser. And I said, let me do this for fun. Let's dress up in a suit and just be over the top. And so I thought that was actually really cool. I want to do this seriously. So ended up being like finding an internship. We called it an internship. I think they were just desperate for help. And they said, you can call it an internship. Broadcasting Pensacola State College basketball. And that laid a foundation, and then was able to get a lot of reps at Miami Student Radio. But the biggest thing is reps. Number two, I would try to link up and network with broadcasters whenever you can. Every time we had an ESPN game, ESPN2, ESPNU, CBS, anytime any network was at I was that student hanging out a couple hours before the game when the broadcasters would show up. And I would bother the heck out of them and just try to pick their brains. So shout out to Wes Durham and Tim Brando and Allison Williams and Anish Shroff and Bill Roth. So they just listened to myself, my awkward Justin Bieber haired self who was asking for broadcast advice. It takes, they pass down a lot of wisdom, and so you feel an obligation to do that towards the next crew. So
that's good advice. That is good. Nice.
Are you a member of National Sports Media Association out in North?
I'm not a member. I think we're going to try to submit some work towards that for the upcoming up year. But certainly a lot of talent in that. Yeah.
Yeah, I am a member, just so you know. So with that said, one of my favorite Shula Bowls actually occurred over at Joe Robbie Stadium. A guy by the name of T.Y. Hilton, played, and that was a 57-50 game. Now, in favor of FAU, but what was so interesting about that football game is that FAU, with that win, earned a trip to the Motor City Bowl, for which George Eichorn and I covered. And T.Y. Hilton, to me, I knew after that game, was going to the NFL, and he was going to do some incredible things. So talk about the impact that T.Y. Hilton has made for the impression of FIU. Do you think he's the best player that's ever played at FIU?
Yes, unequivocally, yes. When T.Y. Hilton was at FIU, you talk about the culture here. It wasn't a game when FIU played. It was an event. If you see photos, if you watch videos of the Duke FIU homecoming game in 2011, UCF around the same time period, I mean, the place was packed. Whiteouts, an electric atmosphere. And I don't know what it was. Maybe the Ty, his speed, his touchdown. I don't know what it was, but Mario had things rolling as well. There was something special happening at FIU, and Ty was a big part of it. I think the South Florida community realized they had an NFL prospect on their hands, a guy that was going to do damage at the next level. The win on the road at Louisville stands out to so many people. Ty did awesome things, man. and he's one of a number of Panthers that have gone on to do great things at the NFL level, whether it's Jonathan Cyprien or Jonnu Smith. I'm probably forgetting some others as well. But Ty is certainly the guy that's probably made the biggest impression at FIU and the NFL level. And those are the guys you need to really develop the prestige, the tradition, the history of a program. So, I still remember as an undergrad, everyone knew who T.Y. Hilton was in college football, and those are the guys that you need. So I know the program's really thankful for everything he's done for them.
Yeah, when I was at Joe Robbie Stadium, not only was I amazed at what I saw in the press box, but I got on the field at the end of the game and I nearly got run over by somebody. But that was a game that went into overtime. And to me, I would say, AJ, that's one of the best college football games I have ever seen. And when I tell you how many college football games I've seen in the last 35, 40 years, and I'm putting the FIU FAU game right near that top of that list, let me tell you, that was unbelievable. I would think a guy like T.Y. Hilton should hopefully get a statue at FIU or some sort of major recognition, because to me, I couldn't believe what I saw that day. And of course, it's great that he's doing incredible things in the NFL, and who knows what else is going to become. But I was totally impressed. So when we talk about FIU on the national radar, obviously that elevation took place when they went from the Sun Belt Conference to Conference USA. Would you agree?
Yeah, and that's no disservice. I think the Sun Belt has so many great teams, and it continues to make an impact. But that was part of the goal with a lot of teams that made that jump. And Conference USA has done great things as well. So the conference realignment is never an easy thing to navigate. But yeah, that was part of the thinking.
Yeah, Conference USA is a very good conference for a lot of those individuals. You realize some of the schools that are in there, obviously, I believe UAB, I saw that Conference USA championship game over at FAU Stadium against FAU. That turned out pretty well. So, now do you follow the Miami Dolphins very much?
Yeah, I'll turn their games on CBS on Sunday afternoons. I'm an LA Rams fan. So aside from the last 2 or 3 years, it's been about a decade and a half of misery and frustration. I follow all the Miami teams now, living here again and support them, even though I'm an Orlando Magic fan, I'm a big time follower of the Heat and what they're trying to do right now. So yeah, definitely following the Dolphins and what they're doing.
Yeah, the Dolphins are a big help to us. Florida Panthers are. And I got to tell you, the Miami Marlins have given us a lot of access, and I'm on their Zoom calls, and I'm by being with the immediate availability I had there, I'm learning Zoom a lot quicker because of how much I understand and how more powerful it is. But George, what else do you want to add?
Well, yeah, regarding the NFL and the Dolphins, I mean, again, it's been a interesting last few days. Your thoughts, AJ, about the Tennessee Titans and how the COVID broke out there? 8 players, 8 staff members. Of course, Cam Newton being benched, thrown for a curveball. And by the way, New England did get their hands smacked really hard by Kansas City, as I expected the Chiefs to win tonight's game. So your thoughts about the NFL? I mean, should they go to a bubble? There's some talk that the coaches, some of the coaches may want to go into a bubble situation with the NFL teams. What are your thoughts, AJ?
Well, I don't think this is the first postponement, if I recall correctly. This and whichever it might have been in a couple of weeks. I don't know if you need to shift to a bubble yet. I felt this would be inevitable in the NFL. I don't think there should be any panic at this point. Think back to the start of the MLB season. The Marlins had their outbreak. The St. Louis Cardinals followed them, and there were postponements all throughout the course of the season. But the Marlins are still playing. They got their playoff spots, and it seems like baseball made it through the regular season just fine. I don't think any pro sports league or MLB or NFL, I should say, was going to make it the whole season without anything happening anywhere. But look, they had the mini outbreak, but their game was delayed by 1 day. So I wouldn't resort to saying they need to go to a bubble just because of it as of yet. Look, the NFL, these guys are being tested every day. The contact tracing is tremendous. If anyone, is able to pull this off, these are professional sports leagues that have that daily testing, the rapid antigen testing. And so if you've identified positive cases and you're still able to play the next day, I think that speaks to how seriously that you're taking it. And I felt this would happen at some point, and it was a couple of weeks into the season. It wasn't week 1, it wasn't week 2. So to me, that's positive. But we'll see how it goes. I mean, certainly, maybe we get to week 6 or 7 and, crazy outbreaks happen, but knock on wood that's not the case, and they're able to continue doing this effectively.
All right,
Yeah.
we'll have one more final Miami note before we wrap up the broadcast. The Miami Marlins take on the Atlanta Braves tomorrow, the NLDS.
Yep.
I'll tell you what, my heart's with the Marlins, and I've gone on record predicting that the Marlins are going to win. This team is a team of destiny. If there's a team that knows how to handle adversity better than Miami Marlins, find me that team, because I'm not smart enough to be able to think that there is another team. So what are your thoughts about the Miami Marlins' chances of going into the postseason? What people have to understand is that when the Miami Marlins get to the postseason, they're undefeated in 7 postseason series, and they won the night in 2003. They won their last World Series championship, and I happened to be at Joe Robbie Stadium when Pudge Rodriguez made that play at the plate, and of course we all know about the 1997 World Series as well. So 2 incredible series. They're 7 for 7. Don't know how long that undefeated thing will go, but this team's a team of destiny, isn't it, AJ?
I want to purchase my Bottom Feeders T-shirt as soon as possible. The nickname, the kind of motivation they've given to themselves. The Philly broadcaster called them Bottom Feeders at the start of the season. It's a great story of resiliency. The dozens of players they had knocked out at the start of the year, and no one really gave them a shot. I've wanted to believe in what Derek Jeter's been doing since he got here, and we'll see what happens in a full 162-game season next year. But, if 2020 has shown us anything, crazy things will happen in this postseason and sports in general. You've got 2 aces and Sandy Alcantara and Sixto Sanchez, and if you have pitching as strong as that, who knows what can happen over the course of the series. And obviously, as you referenced, an organization that has yet to lose a postseason series. So like I said, our sport at FIU was all the Miami teams and organizations, and that extends to the Marlins. Butch Davis gave them a good luck message at the start of the season. He had a baseball bat and a Marlins cap on and was taking some home run swings at the FIU Athletic Center. So we're going to call that the Marlins good luck charm. And,
well, I'm also going to endorse Don Mattingly for Manager of the Year, and as everybody ought to realize, when you talk about great pitching, it was talked about today, the Zoom conference, that you got Pablo Lopez and you have Sixto Sanchez at a good 1-2-3 punch. You don't worry about 4 and 5. This team, I can't predict what they're going to do, but I'll tell you what, to me, what they've done is they've inspired our community for sure.
I agree.
Well, so with that said, as we wrap up the broadcast, AJ, why don't you let everybody know how they can reach you on Twitter, social media, whatever you want to put out there. George will do the same. I'll talk about it on our behalf before we wrap this bad boy up. So go ahead, AJ. I look forward to seeing you at now that you do basketball. There's football, basketball. I'm going to be looking for you, and we're going to get that Kodak moment. So go ahead, AJ.
Absolutely. Really simple. At AJ Ricketts on Twitter with 2 T's. And you can follow me there. Same thing as a Facebook page as well. That was somehow verified. Someone must have made a terrible mistake, but at AJ Ricketts on Facebook as well, or AJ Ricketts FIU. So yeah, appreciate you guys having me on and support. We're trying to keep doing great things at FIU, and it's great to see folks catching on to that. So thank you guys.
Welcome. George, go ahead.
Yeah, I've got a new book out. Actually, it's been out a few years, but it's still new to me. Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the Air, which I chronicle the history of Detroit and Michigan sports broadcasting, going back to the days of Ty Tyson and Bud Lynch, Bruce Martin, George Blaha, the modern broadcasters, Jim Brandstatter, and Paul Carey and Ernie Harwell and Ken Kell and Ken Daniels, Mickey Redmond. And also you'll find in that book a fella named Scott Morganroth. Yes, the Motor City Modmouth. He is featured in some pictures with Jimmy Connors and Muhammad Ali. And you can get that book by clicking on my profile at the South Florida Tribune website. And for $20, you won't be disappointed. It's a wonderful book capturing all of Detroit and Michigan broadcast history. You can also reach me on Twitter at DSBA2 and at Yahoo at Eichorn@yahoo.com. And great program tonight, AJ and Scott. Thanks for putting together such a nice program.
You're welcome. And in terms of getting a hold of us, if you want to listen to the audio version of the Sports Exchange, you can do so by Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Once again, if I'm talking too fast, I'm known for that. Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. In terms of contacting us at Twitter, you can find us at Tribune South. That's the @ Tribune South. Facebook and Instagram, South Florida Tribune Gets It Done. We have a YouTube channel where you'll find this broadcast on it. South Florida Tribune, please subscribe. No charge to do it. And you'll be able to go ahead and get your updates there. Our website is www.southfloridatribune.com. On there, you'll find our content from our media distribution partners, which I'm proud to say that FIU provides us with material, FAU and a lot of the local teams. We have all of our broadcasts on there. We also have a section for Motor City Monitor. Since it is my hometown, I like to promote them as well. And, so between the broadcasters and our columnists, they're on there as well. Our email address is southfloridatribune@gmail.com. And you can reach me out, Scott Morganroth, on LinkedIn as well. So, there's lots of different ways to get a hold of us. And we try to bring on great guests. And I always look for people that, to me, are high character individuals that I like to communicate now with, not before the broadcast, but I'm here to make lifelong friends on the broadcast. And AJ Ricketts, as I said, folks, I met him on Twitter, and I tell you what, I'm really delighted that we got in contact, and I'm looking forward to not only seeing you in person, but seeing the great things that you're destined, AJ, to do. And you're off to a phenomenal start, AJ, and it's been a pleasure of ours to have you on this show tonight. It really, truly has been.
I will Venmo you $20 for saying those kind things. Meeting. I know we had a contract for me to pay you to say that, so thank you so much. Really, thank you. It's been great.
Hey, if he's getting $20, I want 25, AJ.
Hey, I didn't hear all those great things the last 30 seconds from you, George. Come on, let's move.
Hey, if you even dare send me a check for $20, I'm going to donate it to charity. But if you're going to do anything to help me out, help us with the subscribers on the South Florida Tribune.
There we go. Yep.
Be good enough. And then, by the way, I do probably owe you a meal or two somewhere. We'll just figure out where we're going to do it. So
that sounds good, guys.
But meanwhile, thanks again for joining us on the Sports Exchange. My name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Mad Mouth. And by the way, that is trademarked nowadays in the broadcasting side. I'm working on the public speaking as well as the writing part, but at least we got the broadcasting part of it. Thankfully, being joined by AJ Ricketts and George Eichorn. So on behalf of all of us, all we ask everybody out there to do is take the necessary COVID precautions, whether it's mask up, social distance, stay safe, and please don't take this virus lightly, because it certainly is nothing to do that. So on behalf of all three of us tonight, we thank you for joining us on this edition of the Sports Exchange, and everybody be safe. Thanks again, everybody. Good night.
Good night.